Incredibles 3 has the perfect chance to surpass the 2018 sequel if it can implement one element that Incredibles 2 was lacking. After 14 long years, The Incredibles finally got its long-awaited sequel, and while it didn't quite match the quality of the original, it was still a worthy follow-up. Considering The Incredibles was one of the best Pixar movies ever made, it was always going to be hard for the sequel to please everyone, but it debuted to strong reviews and was a massive box office hit, proving it was well worth the wait. However, despite it being an overall success, Incredibles 2 still has some obvious areas it could have improved on, setting up the next installment to be even better. Incredibles 3 was officially confirmed in August 2024, and while no release date has been announced yet, the shorter wait between movies is a healthy sign for the franchise. Although little is known about where the story will go next or who will return, the third movie will presumably follow the Parr family once again, and one big change would give Incredibles 3 the perfect opportunity to overcome its predecessor's shortcomings. Whereas Incredibles 2 picked up almost immediately after the original movie ended, the third entry can avoid repeating history by including a much-needed time skip. Progressing the timeline would add a fresh dynamic to the narrative, as a more modern setting would allow for more fun gadgets and technology to be involved. Although the red suits have become iconic, seeing the protagonists change their costumes, adopt new strategies, and potentially struggle to adjust to advanced innovations could all spice up the franchise, making Incredibles 3 feel significantly different from the last two movies. Additionally, Incredibles 3 changing its characters' ages would make it unique, as Dash and Violet could become more competent heroes compared to their parents, who may find it hard to keep up with the new era. The fresh setting wouldn't have to go too far into the future, but having a slightly more modern take could make a huge difference, especially if Jack was beginning his heroism. Incredibles 2 chose to pass on the opportunity to skip time, but Incredibles 3 cannot afford to make the same decision given how much potential a new setting has. Despite Incredibles 2 performing well critically and financially, one of its biggest weaknesses was that it didn't really stand out from the first film. While the attempt to restore public faith in superheroes did make for a fun plot, the first movie essentially achieved this when the protagonists defeated Syndrome and the Omnidroid, meaning Pixar could have come up with a more original plot. Seeing Violet trying to balance her love life with her superhero persona alongside Bob struggling to take a step back while Helen remains in the spotlight were some of the sequel's most interesting dynamics. However, the story could have leaned more heavily into this if the family were older. Therefore, a time skip would have helped each character have a more unique arc compared to their role in The Incredibles, giving them more room to grow in the process. The sequel's ending still sets up the potential of a time skip for the third movie, given there isn't a direct sequel tease unlike in the first film, but the second installment really would have benefited from a newer setting and more mature characters, which still feels like wasted potential 6 years later. The Incredibles makes legacy a priority theme in the original movie, and it's why the hit Pixar film has become a classic, as focusing on differing generations both in terms of characters and eras makes the premise so interesting. The opening scene features Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible in their prime when superheroes were loved, which is a huge contrast to the rest of the film where they haven't been in the spotlight for quite some time. Additionally, Syndrome's legacy is defined by these unique periods, as he was once an aspiring protege who turned evil due to Bob's dismissive attitude. Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl's reputation from their heyday adds to how exciting it is when they return to heroism in secret, with these two opposing stages in their lives showing completely different sides of them. Incredibles 2 unfortunately lacked these aspects, as the story directly followed the first outing, meaning the world and characters were nearly identical to what audiences had seen before. As a result, Incredibles 3 should remember how important legacy is to the series, and focusing on a more futuristic setting while allowing Dash and Violet to grow into popular heroes should be the franchise's next step.